do in the underlying zoning. We're just asking for the soil mining overlay to be expanded to attach over this property. Now, when the town adopted the soil mining overlay, if you look at the purpose of the soil mining overlay district, in 97-8 it says, the purpose of this overlay district is to provide appropriate locations for soil mining to occur where it can encourage commercially viable agriculture by enabling farm operators to supplement their farm income. And then in the actual soil mining overlay district regulations in 98.28, it talks about the town seeks to balance the need for soil mining to financially support bona fide agricultural operations and provide needed materials while protecting the rural character and peace and quiet enjoyment of the town residents. The town of Goshen will therefore allow commercial mining only in those locations where it will help promote the town's goal of maintaining rural character and a viable agricultural sector with minimal disturbance to residential neighbors. Now, in the vicinity of the site, there is a mining operation that occurred over the course of the years. I think it's commonly referred to as Penaluna, and would access the same road, Cedar Swamp Road. But what I wanted to point out to the board that while the purpose of the soil mining overlay was to allow farming operations to clear land, to mine some gravel, to make some money, and then revert the land back to agricultural operations, the actual overlay itself is only located in one spot right here, which is where the Dutchess Quarry is, which is has nothing to do with, agricultural operations. It's a commercial crushing, quarrying operation, which is much different than, what I think the purpose of the soil overlay, which was to, allow farmers, subject to going through planning board review, subject to going through DEC review, subject to posting whatever they needed to post with the town for road bonds to make sure the integrity of the roads were there, to allow them to supplement their farming income by doing some, agriculture, some soil mining. And, this parcel, there can be an argument made, although your code is a little bit written to regulate it, that, part of this New York state law has allowed mining operations to gradually expand as non-conforming uses. Usually you cannot expand a non-conforming use, but in cases of mines, the courts have looked at it and said, well, the intention usually is that a mine would expand and you would finish the, leveling off of the hill. Well, here, because it was done in phases, the DEC only issued the permit for a portion of this, was a 24-acre parcel. So really what we would be doing is looking for the town to put the soil overlay over this property to allow us to go to the DEC and to the planning board to finish what the Gerda family started, to finish, leveling off this property, would have a remediation plan. I think the hopes of Mr. Gerda would be to use it for some type of commercial agricultural, either for packing plant or for something associated with their operation. So that's really the overview. I'm going to now introduce Tim Moot. Tim will give you a little bit more specifics about the operation itself, how it's historically operated, how it's envisioned to continue.
Good evening, everybody. I have a collection of aerial photos here. Mr. Gerda couldn't make it tonight, but had indicated, as John did, that the mining operation had been in the family for quite some time. I know Jeff Schumard from our office had handled the DEC permitting that goes back to the early 90s. I've personally been involved for the past 10 years in maintaining their valid permit, which is for 13 acres of the entire parcel. We put forth an application to DEC for a mine permit expansion back in 2008, and during seeker, it was flagged by the town that this was a non-conforming use, so that's where we pretty much are picking up now. We responded to many of the DEC engineering comments in a resubmission, but felt before we moved forward to get absolute DEC approval, we wanted to get the town zoning issues squared away. It's kind of hard to see, and I can leave this here if you like, but you can sort of see the progression of the mine going back from the 60s to the current day. It didn't really change much early on, but as Wayne indicated, I believe it was a larger project back in the 90s that had a big need for the sand and gravel, so there was a lot of activity within a short period of time. But Wayne is looking for this expansion. He has to maintain a bond with DEC to make sure that the reclamation plan is completed per the spec. The thing to keep in mind is that this is a finite operation. Throughout the whole parcel, we need to maintain a certain perimeter around it, so there is an end to where we're going. It's not going to keep coming back for more and more. So Wayne's looking to keep the option open, get the zoning done so we can get the DEC approval. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Is this going, when you're talking about money, are you going into the side of a hill, or are you going to...
It's pretty much the side of a hill, it's sand and gravel, and
Versus
they're able to
pit.
just dig it out, right. Currently, the bottom of the pit, there's very rarely standing water in there, the sand permeates down. Currently, the bottom elevation of the pit, DEC is requiring us to bring it up a couple feet, but once that's occurred, we maintain that elevation and go in. We've already submitted a stormwater management plan, which is a big issue with DEC these days, and we worked through some significant hurdles. Things to move forward after we get to town would be a screening and buffering plan. There's already some natural pines that buffer from the existing residents. We're gonna augment that. We also have plans for a berm along Cedar Swamp Road, which is basically an unimproved road at this point. And then archaeological, those are like three of the big things moving forward, but we didn't want to go down that road. So,
Now, where will most, this is 640,000 tons. Yeah, 640,000 tons. Where's that material going to go?
right. Well, that's the thing, is we don't necessarily know. There's large projects within the area that some people know about, but, you know, like the big interchange, who knows what the next big shopping mall development. But Wayne doesn't know, nobody knows exactly, but as you know, we have to lay the groundwork, get the permits, and maintain the bond so that if an opportunity should arise, all the paperwork's in order.
I think, you know, according to Wayne, you know, that's why I think you see, you know, the original 13 acres has been since 1963 to present, but the biggest activity in this was during the some of the construction at Woodbury Commons. They took a lot of it. So what will happen is you won't see a steady stream from this, but it may come to time where someone says, you know, we need gravel, where can we get it? Wayne would have an approved plan, and someone could go there, so you may see activity for a couple months, you know, once again under DEC review to make sure it's phased and stabilized, that it's done, and then you may see activity for another 3 years. You know, so.
When is the last time anybody was done?
I think it happens almost regularly, but at such a small scale. He uses it for the operations around the farm, sanding for winter operations. So I think there's like pretty
Commercial.
Commercial?
When was the last time you was commercial in this problem?
I don't really know for sure. The biggest one to note was for the commons there, back in
But the permit has stayed valid with DEC, so there still is a valid DEC permit. They still hold the reclamation bond, so that's why the next phase, it may be 5 years before it's done, it may be 15 years, it may be a big order, and the whole reclamation would go, but, you know, in any event, with Tim and the engineers will have to demonstrate that it could be done in a manner to continue to, you know, to stabilize it and continue to make sure that the erosion control measures and stormwater measures are there, so that it's done in a orderly manner.
And all the product that's taken out of these mines is going to remain in the town of Goshen?
Yeah.
Just asking that question.
I don't think there's any regulations relating to that no, it would go to, you know, whoever,
There were.
you know, whoever needed.
Dennis? can you answer the question?
There's no prohibition, if it's an
Of taking it out of the
if
town of
it's an
Goshen?
approved operation, there would be no prohibition if it was approved. Well, meaning the zoning doesn't permit it at present.
No, I understand that, but there's no prohibition for them to take the material from Goshen and move it out into other communities? There used to be, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that many times had to do with
Sure.
mining permits and
Absolutely.
using on site and all,
Yeah.
but that's what I'm saying.
This is off-site, taken off-site and
No
out of the
question.
town. I remember that there were
Yeah.
definitely prohibitions against it.
Yes, I mean, the rationale for that was, I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand.
Understand. The rationale for that, with many times, as you know,
Yeah.
the property owners, regardless of the size of the property, they would either be digging foundations or whatever the case, or doing some type of activity on the property.
No, I'm talking
And they would
about-
find resources which they would like to supplement, income-wise. They were trying to take it off-site. And the town's rationale at that time was they did not want to see a lot of that activity, which unfortunately may cause deleterious effects on the highways, debris, gravel, dirt, whatever, unless it was a true mining operation.
Right.
It's much like, I analogize to Dutchess Quarry, which John
Right.
referred to. Obviously, they're taken off-site. But yeah,
Right.
in a strictly minimal sense, you can't take it off-site. But if it was an approved operation as a sand and gravel business operation, whatever,
Right.
the presumption would be they would take it off-site.
Okay.
It would be.
One of the concerns that I have, to be very candid with you, when I first got into office, I got complaints from people who lived down near the current one. Noise, dust, so forth and so on. Now, this is a much, much larger scale than what the current one is, much larger. And 640,000 tons. If you were on Route 17A, like Dutchess Quarry is, and you say, well, that's concrete, that road's built for it. But there are a lot of roads out here that you're going to have to traverse to get to the main roads that have fallen away. And we've had some very poor experience on some of our town roads, just building homes. These big dual-axle machines twisting and turning and ripping the roads up. So we would, if this goes as you would like, certainly there's going to have to be some provisions on how we protect county and town roads, I should think, to get you to the main highways. Just a thought.
One of the things the town does retain when you allow mining operations that the DEC does reserve to the town is the ability to require bonds and require regulations related to what roads are used and, to make sure that they're repaired. So that is something, we, would certainly have to work out with the town board, planning board, and,
Is there, I mean, you're in municipal law in terms of like where the landfills, there's tipping fees and things like that. Is that ever appropriate in these kinds of things? So for road maintenance, if it's a consequence of the roads that would be traversed by...
It has been done.
yeah.
I don't mean to jump in and answer the question, but it has been done. It's not universal, but yes,
Right.
it's a consideration.
I mean, I'll be very candid, but that's my biggest concern, is the roadway to get it from where it is to where it's got to go.
We understand fully that that's a legitimate concern, and we'll have to address it to the town's satisfaction, or the town could, deny it. I think that's in, the current soil mining operations, but we think that, and the tonnage and the overall, we could work, if the town mentioned to the DEC to phase it, so when you look at with the 640, you said
640,000 tons, yes.
that if there was an order for all 640,000 tons in a year period, we couldn't do it. That there would be, I think we would be willing to work out some type of limitations that no more than a certain amount in any given time period to make sure the roads are not overburdened.
Well, it would impact the surrounding communities, and that's the other thing we're worried about, roads and access.
And what's the timeline?
And the planning.
Yeah.
There is, I think he said that it would just go.
Yeah, but what's the timeline exactly? Is there a projected life for this, or literally it's what business will bear?
The original one, I said, has gone on for a long time, but here, Tim.
Yeah, when you say the original one, are you talking the operation which the GERDAs utilize for their own farm?
Correct. Currently, it's a 13-acre footprint.
Right, as opposed to the commercial operation, which was a separate, distinct business.
Well, I don't know how they work it out internally, separating that. They have a permit to mine, which through the eyes of DEC, that allows them, I don't know what the threshold is, 800 cubic yards per year to actually process something like that. But I jumped to to estimate the worst case scenario, say 640,000 yards. I said, well, let's say it takes an hour to fill 4 25-yard dump trucks, and it's a typical 8-hour day, and you're working 5 to 8. I ran some calcs and said, okay, worst case, if they said go, we need every ounce out of there, it's a 3 to 4 year process at that rate. So even if it was, let's hurry up and use it all, I just did an average of 4 trucks per hour, just to see what we were talking. And that's kind of our argument, is it's finite. I mean, 3 to 4 years is quite a long time, but it's not 10, 15, 20 years at full threshold.
Right, but what they're looking at is specific projects that come along that will require their product, so that could be stretched for 10, 20, 30 years. Or the duration could be longer. And that would definitely have an impact on the planning of the rest of the community. That's something that...
The basic thing I think probably pointed out is the weight restrictions, the trucks, I mean, the traffic you create out there, because, again, unfortunately or unfortunately, I'm very involved in that type of business, or have been all my life, and depending upon how successful and the need for gravel, I know I'm old enough to go back to Route 17 when they built it in '84, and let me tell you, gravel was like gold's teeth in those days. I'm sure, if Johnny remembers, I'm sure, I don't think you're as old as I am, John, but it's hard to say. You could have a very, almost daily active operation there, a true commercial operation. If you remember Dick's Concrete and some of the other entities out there.
I see the Tex
exactly.
operation by Middletown.
And I'll be the first one to say, it's not the most aesthetically attractive thing in the world, and it can cause issues, be it traffic or dust and noise, that type of thing.
Well, they've eroded the road by the cemetery there going into Middletown.
Yeah.
They resurfaced the whole thing.
Yeah, that's a problem.
With the volume of traffic, the road is already falling apart, and I think Tex rebuilt that road. We don't have anything like
Yeah, just talking out loud, obviously the board should familiarize itself with the road system out there. I know you live in Goshen, but, knowing, I know the site, there is limited access. No, there's road access, certainly. But just, you don't have a plethora of roads to access,
Well, I think that
major concern.
we've had, Hartley Road.
Right.
We restricted to one end because the road was just destroyed for the big trucks. These tandem trucks pulling this stone out are very, very heavy.
It could be,
And so I think if we're going to approve this, what we're going to need is some kind of assurance. Number one, that the neighborhoods aren't going to be up in arms as a consequence of noise and dust and whatever. And number two is that we protect all the roads, whether they be town roads or county roads or whatever they are, so that we don't harvest those roads, if you so to speak, and then have to go back later on and redo them. So, okay. So I think more dialogue, depending on where the board's at, I think we need to go out and look at it, taste it, smell it, feel it, before we move along.
We'd certainly be willing to do, really what we'd like to discuss tonight is when we go back to Wayne to provide that information. If the board says, listen, we don't want to see mining here and, go think of something else, he'll think of something else. If you say, we'll consider it, but we have concerns and those concerns need to be addressed, then Tim can go to work with Wayne and see, can we address them to your satisfaction? And
for the board's edification, as I believe you know from the past, a zone change is within your discretion. It's not mandatory, there's no automatic right to it. And in fairness, John, what little I know, I've had a chance to talk to the board about this, you're probably not, I would assume, the board's probably not even in a position to familiarize yourself enough with the property that you could even make a determination, either that you wanted it or you don't want it at this stage. That's what I'm guessing.
We need to go out and look at it.
That's what I'm saying,
That's big, zone change, we'd be changing the law here.
Correct.
So it's not just a special use permit saying, okay, it's a good idea. We'd have to change the whole thing. That's quite involved. It's a large concern. So, just so you know some of the things that we're doing.
And like I said, we'd be happy to meet with you if you want us to get the planning board involved to give you some information to some extent, we'd like to do that, but to Mr. Koplicki's point,
Right.
it is in your discretion. So if you say, you know, what we're looking for, if you guys say, hey, this is just not something we want to consider,
Right.
then I'm going to tell my client, you know, cut the cash, or, you know,
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
think of something else.
I hesitate to say this, but John, this board, especially this board, is very prideful in the fact that I think it's accurate for me to say that this board doesn't intend to, and hopefully never will, mislead an applicant.
No.
Meaning, they won't lead John. They'll form an opinion after a site visit or whatever the case, and if it's a no-go, they'll be the first ones to tell you that. In fairness.
Yeah, I really think that basically, as the weather warms up and we can see the ground again, we probably ought to go out and look at it. So I'm looking at that map, I mean, I think I'm familiar with it, but not really.
That's what I wanted to add, is Cedar Swamp Road comes right into this County Route 37, which
Yes.
is what, you know, a pretty
Right.
good road through
Yes.
there. But on there is Gerda Lane, which gets you into this dark green area, it's the black dirt.
Yes,
And that's actually zoned, you know, the agricultural industrial.
right.
And Gerda Gardens is actually a quasi-industrial operation, or at least at one time, with the onion processing. There's
Right.
heavy-duty tractor trailers full of
Sure.
produce that travel that road. So this road, in my opinion, is a pretty substantial road to begin with.
Right.
It's just the Cedar Swamp Road, which is an unimproved road, but certainly the
But if you
bond.
come up and go across Crossroads or wherever to get to 17A, or you go through New Hampton to get to 17M, I mean, these are we have
Those are
laid
the
out
other
all the
roads.
different ways to go. And, okay, any other questions or comments from the board? George?
The first question is, simply put, are we looking at like a mound of gravel, and then that mound is going to be cut down to the surface? You're not taking product from underground?
No, it's when you stand there, right now, you'll see a hole in the ground where they've currently been mining out of, but you'll see a hill. And they're gonna move the hill back and basically make it, my envision is like an amphitheater, how you have kind of gentle, gradual side slopes, and then you have like a stage area in the bottom. And that's for lack of a better,
Right, so the product is really coming above surface?
it's above
That's
surface.
Surface down.
Right.
Okay. The second thing is you alluded to the fact of the DEC, you wanted to take care of business here before you continued on with the DEC, which I understand is. Is there something that you can be doing without us? Let's say we said no, or we'll think about it, what can you proceed and what can you do without us?
Well, it kind of gets back to the money issue,
Right.
and Mr. Gerda doesn't want to keep spending money pursuing something if there's no proof.
The town,
And when
when it
you
comes
have
to
some
zoning,
type, what I'm saying is you have some type of a permit now, what does that entitle you to do?
there's an
Without any
existing
changes.
permit that covers 13 acres, that clearly covers 13 acres of this site. There is some law that says if you have a permit for 13 acres, you can gradually expand, mostly non-conforming uses. If you have a non-conforming 4,000 square foot restaurant, and you want to put an extension on that restaurant, law's pretty clear, you can't expand that. It's a little more murky on mining operations. I know prior, Wayne had, approached the planning board and discussed that issue. I'm not really looking to go, down that road, but one thing that the DEC does exempt, the DEC controls the actual operation of the mine. Once you allow it, while the town can comment and the planning board can comment, the remediation plan, the actual mining, that's under the control of the DEC. But the town can say in areas of the town that it's either permitted or it's not permitted. But once you say it's permitted, an application is filed, the town has total control over its roads, total control over certain issues, but the actual mining itself, the operation, that requires a DEC permit, that the town gives all its comments to the DEC considers them, but they're the ultimate authority as to how the mining operation is going to occur, how the remediation is going to go.
But if we do give you the go-ahead approvals or whatever, at that particular point, then we become responsible for the roads and have to provide good roads for you to operate your operation on, which could be incredibly expensive, but that would be our responsibility. Now, it would be termed in the other direction, and then you could say to the town, these roads are really falling apart, you better go out and fix them. And it would be our obligation to go out and fix these roads. So, I mean, just so I understand it, am I correct, Dennis?
Yeah, basically
Yeah.
correct.
So now, once we say yes, you come back and say, well, you're the one that gave us the permit,
Right.
now go and fix these roads as well.
I think that would almost be a condition proceeding, though. Like, if you were to pursue the concept, you'd have to really look
Oh,
at what
that's what
any
Doug was
weight
talking
limits, yeah, exactly.
But I just want to make sure it's clear that once we pull
Otherwise-
the trigger.
Right, otherwise, as you
We
know,
don't
we in a
have-
situation where even, not to pick on them, but the
Yes.
Ellsbury landfill would like improvements on the road.
Yep.
Which road we did not damage. They unfortunately, through their customers did.
Yeah.
You have those
They told
situations.
us that we had better fix it.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that's just great. Anyway.
You need a site visit.
We have to.
You need a site visit.
And there are issues, the only thing I would counter, is as the town does improvements though, I mean, you have this a lot in the areas. I mean, part of the vision of the zoning was to allow material to be processed locally, and for agricultural operations to get it. Because when you have projects in the town, and you do have road projects, they're gonna need stone. Stone's gonna come from somewhere, and it's gonna get to Goshen. And
Mhm.
it's gonna go over your roads, and in that case, those trucks are gonna be, just as big, so there is
Well, I think what we.
some scale of operations to
Yeah.
say, let's get some of it local, and if we can handle it appropriately.
Any other questions from the board?
No, I think he's answered the question.
I think that, what I'd like to see before we even discuss it much anymore is to go out and look at it, a walk through with Wayne or whoever it is to show us what it is that you'd like to do on this. And then we can kind of look at the roads, and I'd like Neil Howard, our building inspector, go out with us so that we get an idea of it, and then I think we'll be in a position to talk about it.
Okay, I would suggest maybe wait a few weeks before the snow get melted, and
Yeah, I mean,
I'll coordinate with,
sure.
do you want to coordinate through Neil, or?
Neil, yeah, that Neil will be fine.
The last time I was out there was about 7-8 years ago with Steve Andershack, and he showed me the whole lay of the land, but I like to go out there, yeah.
Okay? Is that fair enough then? Okay.
Thanks very much for your time.
I appreciate your,
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Be just here for the next.
Is there somebody else?
Or is anyone else?
Kenny without a speaker.
Yeah.
You don't want. Put the other people on that, I think.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks.
Number 2, we're going to skip it, that we're going to pick that up about 8:15. So the third item is review a request by the Goshen Zoning Board of Appeals to change the town code 97-40E regarding height of fences at the property line. So I've asked Neil to come in and talk a little bit about what this is for us, and then we can get involved. But we have a letter here from Rick Golden, so you can see that in your packet.
This is coming out of, we just had 2 recent applications, actually. One applicant is here tonight, probably would also lend some insight as to what the reason they were doing this. Basically, the concern that 2 applicants were about is deer getting into the landscaping. People are investing a fair amount of money in landscaping, say in the thousands or tens of thousands sometimes, and deer make a buffet out of this, for lack of a better word. So our code requires that fences are, maximum fence we're allowed on any property line, on property lines now, is 6 feet. If you want to go any higher than 6 feet, even in the backyard, you must bring it off the property line approximately 25 feet. Now that's varies a little bit with the zoning areas, but you have to be off the property line by approximately 25 feet if you want to go over 6 feet tall. That means if you want a fence in your backyard, you're going to lose 50 feet from the sides and 25 feet from the back, and you can't do your front yard very much at all. Hence, some of the lots that we have, one of the applicants is probably just over an acre. The other applicant, I think, was roughly 3 acres, 2 or 3 acres. But you can lose the use of a significant part of your land as far as landscaping if you have to abide by these setbacks. I don't know whether 6 foot or 8 foot is a magical number. It probably depends on which deer you have in your backyard and how much they've been training. But It is what it is, and certainly we have a number of, people are trying to be innovative as to how to get around this, or not get around it, but work with us. One of the things that's being raised is, can I put a berm first, pile the dirt up and then go 6 foot high on top of that, in which case now I'm 6 foot from the ground, but I may really be 8 feet or 10 feet from what was the original ground level. People are trying to work around it. Some of that will work or won't work, maybe. Nobody has gone ahead and done that yet. But one of the concerns with that is that even if I did that, if I go out too far with the berm out to the outside of my fence, the deer can just stand alongside and jump up anyhow. I think I've seen deer who can jump 6 feet from a standing start. So I think that it can happen. But that's the basic concerns being raised.
Have we had anybody at the ZBA meetings or other meetings where people are complaining about fences?
We did have one applicant whose neighbor did complain and said they did not want the fence above 6 feet,
Right.
or over 6 feet. But that was the only thing. The other neighbors in the other case had no objection at all to the fence being over 8 foot.
What kind of fences are we talking about?
In this case, the applicants realized that they're going for a variance. We're going for something, or maybe by choice anyhow, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say just because they were going for a variance. But the applicants are choosing posts roughly every 8 feet and talking about maybe a woven wire fence that's 6 foot by 6 foot. Basically, you're just going to see through them, these fences. It's not a solid fence. We're not getting stockade fences. We're not getting any of these solid vinyl fences that we usually think in terms of privacy. These fences are not privacy fences being proposed. They are very open. That may be a result, really, of the fact that they're asking for a variance, and the visual impact is certainly a concern within the town. So the ZBA was very cognizant of that.
No.
I'm just trying to figure it out.
Probably 10, 12, 10.
Probably about 10.
Yeah, your door sills are usually 6,
Yeah.
to give you an idea.
No, it's 8.
It could be in terms of...
I'm trying to figure out, I'm 6 foot tall, so it's probably where your picture rail is. You go see your head, it's the door.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
He hasn't been in training, he can't even make this.
That's not the size of the door frame, that's pretty high. Okay. I need to
No, this is a work session, so we'll be talking up here. We'll be asking questions for input. Okay.
But I'm just trying to figure out, what they're looking at.
Yeah.
2 feet over.
You offered, I think, some suggestions, different types of things, stuff like that. In the letter from Rick Golden, he states that the ZBA has some suggestions for us and would be more than willing to share those ideas with us. So, do you have them to...
No, the ZBA had some thoughts. They did not make them in any kind of real form. I think they will have no problem coming up with some of their ideas. But, the question is, what look does the town want or whatever? And basically, when we're talking about these fences, they really were looking at pretty much wide open fencing. So you may even not see the fencing unless you were looking for it.
Well, we have had, I've had in my office people come in complaining about a neighbor's fence, nothing like these. Legitimate fences that they had a right to put up.
Yep.
And they had them turned around, so the ugly side was the neighbor versus the other, those kind of
Yep.
questions, So I know it is a sensitive issue.
Sure, and we had that big one in front of the ZBA that made the newspaper, as we call it, the monkey fence.
The monkey fence.
Sure.
That's what I'm talking about. And so...
No, I know I stretch out to 8 feet, so it's 8 feet.
Yeah. I can certainly see why people were complaining, the fact that you had 20 foot or 25 foot inside the property line. That's not very reasonable at all.
That's ridiculous.
But we do have history in Goshen about people complaining about their neighbor's fences.
Yeah.
We just do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, so you please one, you're going to hose off the other. And then,
You know, this would not be an isolated incident. If we change the law, we change the law. That's
I
right.
understand it,
So that would be town-wide. So anyone wanting to put up that size fence closer to their other neighbors or whatever, for whatever, keeping animals in or keeping animals out, at that particular point, we'd have to change it. It's not just...
And I certainly have another person already looking at, can I pile the dirt up and put a fence on top of that and get away with my 6 foot that way?
You know, probably a way, how high is the fence out of the deer farm?
The problem, that's 8 foot at least.
Okay.
We do have another big fence, and it's legal. Now, let's
I don't
talk about that a little bit. On Phillipsburg Road, there is a fence out there that is very, very big. It might even be 10 foot tall. It is on, in some cases, I think, on telephone poles. However, that is agriculture, and as agriculture, it is exempt. Okay, I mean, and if people were really doing something in their yard that qualified as agriculture, they could do it without the variance, but that was not the case.
The deer are all over there I live in the village, and they come up on my front porch, and they lean on the doorbell. 3 o'clock in the morning. Open the door, and there's a deer up, 4 steps up, eating my things. So we all have the same problem, but 6 feet is not...
I only have one concern though. I mean, if you put your fence that's right on a property line, that's 6 foot.
Yes, you can.
So go to 8 foot.
Yeah.
If your neighbor doesn't like fencing, why would you have to come back to 50 feet? You're still
That's right.
gonna see a fence that you object to.
Right.
So why they can go back 25 or 30 feet, I mean.
And the honest answer is the fence...
Extreme, think yourself, no.
And the fence at the property line can be a solid fence that you cannot see through or anything else. And in the case of these 2 applicants, they were both proposing fences that you absolutely could see through.
Yeah, you got fences out there that have a soft look. There are plenty of them out there, I've seen them, down in Jersey and so forth. 7 feet would even work for a deer, I think, just to be honest with you, I don't know. You don't think so?
Oh, no, I know.
Okay.
I know that.
All right, it's good to have somebody that knows.
She knows the deer NBA, she's a coach.
But,
Well, what do you need to stop a deer, 8, 10?
I don't know.
No.
The 2 applicants have been at 8 foot. That's what we've been told so far.
I think that'll work. I really do.
I mean, the other way to do it, and I've read this, is that you could possibly put 2 fences roughly 3 foot apart or 4 foot apart. The deer won't jump over that and try to do 2.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But I'm not sure it's going to look aesthetically any more pleasing than having an 8 foot fence.
No,
No,
but the thing is, then we're gonna have the problems where we have an impaled deer and
Yeah, I was
trapped
gonna say,
deer,
yeah.
and we have the police go out to euthanize the deer, that's not a good thing either. We have out of Salesian all the time where the deer try to jump over that very modest fence
Yeah.
and impale themselves on it, because they got bad eyesight or whatever. Dennis had one in his yard, impaled on the fence, had to come out and shoot the deer. So we have to be thinking about what we're creating here. I think 8 foot probably would work as well.
I mean, I think maybe one of the other concerns you may have if you had, and just you could go 8 foot high fence forever, is that you may very well have a half mile of fence, and you're gonna push them all over to those neighbors at the end.
Yeah. No question about that.
They're gonna go
When they
somewhere.
won't come to your property, they're gonna come to somebody else's. That's true.
Let me ask a question about other communities. I mean, we need to be in keeping with what other people are thinking about, so we don't invent everything here. What do other communities do?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that our attorney for the ZBA was willing to start looking into that. They also represent a number of other municipalities, so they were going to possibly gather that information for the ZBA.
Well, one thing I really do feel empathy towards the person wanting to put the fence up, that they got to come in 20, 25 feet. That, I don't have any problem at all with changing that. The height of the fence, I for one would like to see what, I don't want to drag this thing out, but what other communities do. And, but I'd like to work also. I don't think we want to put a 7-foot fence up and have the deer, and that's kind of productive as well.
One of the other concerns in the conversation at the ZBA is if you set it back a very small amount, or 3 feet back or something like that, you may have this no man's land in the middle that nobody wants to maintain. And the concern was whether that was going to look worse than, think about the aesthetics of it.
Okay.
I can tell you that one of the applicants was on Steeple Hill, which is right in the village, or essentially a village kind of property, and the other one was out on Phillipsburg Road. So we have the kind of the two extremes there, but.
Can you erect the fence right on the property line now?
Yes, you can. When people come into our office, we often recommend they set it back a foot or two.
For maintenance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, for maintenance sake.
Right,
If you do a stockade fence, you can't even erect it from the other side. Right.
Okay, good.
But there is no regulation in our code that says you must stay back X number of feet off the property line.
But to the applicants themselves, I think every applicant needs to understand, they put a fence up. They may do some irreparable damage between them and their neighbors, because that's just the way it works. And again, they come in my office and talk and complain about it. Now, these are all variety of fences, and, but it's a sore subject with some people. What about it, board? Do you want to take the time to find out what some others are doing?
Yeah.
And then give us...
Oh, that's okay.
Well, Neil, can you handle that, and we'll keep this thing open, and, because I want to keep both sides of this open for everybody, because it is a problem.
Sure, I can certainly raise it with the three boards and, the ZBA, the ERB, and the planning board, and just ask their comments without going into real...
Well, I was just thinking, to call 5 municipalities that are rural like ours, Chester, this one, that one, say, well, what do you do?
Okay.
Or maybe someone even up in Sullivan County where they got a lot of deer as well.
They use guns.
Well, I certainly empathize with the problem.
I'm living on Katie Road, so you feed them lead.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
And I'm sorry we can't resolve this tonight, but we will keep an open mind to this.
Hey, Neil?
Yes.
If you get any other municipalities that do have it, would you find out what type of protection, what kind of fences they're putting up? I know there's stuff out there that's a soft look that doesn't make it look.
But once again, I just want to make sure, Dennis, this requires a change in the law.
It would.
This is not just,
It'd be a local
this is not just an approval for the fence for the board to vote on. This requires, what, public hearings?
Correct.
Change in the whole
And
law for the whole town.
Correct.
Yeah,
And there would be substantial, I would call it research and preparation of the actual text. It would affect various sections of our code.
Yeah, so it's just, once again, even if we all decided right now, it's a good idea, you need to go through the whole thing to change the law of the town. That's what it really is. Just so you know, it's not something that we can do without the public hearings and all of that.
Okay, very good. Well, we got a path forward, let's see where we can go with it. Okay. George, item 4, review JRC plans for baseball field drainage improvements at Craigville.
I spoke to Al Feeney today, and tomorrow is the monthly meeting of the JRC.
Okay.
A letter has been submitted to the JRC with the modifications and drainage that they want to make. Dave Crawford is going to, Al told me that Dave Crawford is going to appear at our meeting tomorrow night. I haven't even actually seen the proposal, but once I get the information tomorrow night, then I can report back to you guys on Thursday.
I will put it on Thursday. Very good, thank you, George.
Question for George, Mike came in from soccer, George. I've always put you his last.
Oh, yeah, Mike, yeah.
He said they have the same, they have the same project in mind, so maybe Little League and soccer can get together and make it easier for you. They want to drain the same areas as Little League wants to drain, so. Maybe they can pool their money or bring some ideas back and forth.
I'll ask that tomorrow night.
Okay, yes.
Great, great, okay. Okay, the next item is review the 2012 Village of Goshen sewer charges for Hamiltonian Park and Arcadia Hill sewer districts and authorize the budget officer to pay the same. So what I've done, I did a little analysis here, and just to compare 2011 to 2012, remembering that 2011 we had Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee. But it's good news. The fact is in Hamiltonian Park, the amount of sewage that we deliver to the village is 52.5% less, or 20,413,000 gallons. The invoice is 30.5% less. So, now that does reflect that the village has lowered the sewer charges for the people in the village based on, for a couple of years, they're going to do this.
Unit charge.
Unit charge, and so that's in there. So people in Hamiltonian Park will get about a 30.5% reduction in the village bill. Arcadia Hills, we delivered 16,382,000 gallons less, or 37.9% less. And here we have the bill itself is 9% less. And so, good performance on both of those. I also looked, I did the comparison in here, you can actually look at the reduction in I&I. And Hamiltonian Park is 2%, Arcadia Hills is 0.44%. Arcadia Hills is less, because I think that they really have, they're a newer system and they have less to improve on. So anyway, the questions I asked the budget officer was this per the IMA? And he said yes. So with that, would someone like to make a motion authorizing the budget officer to pay this bill?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is the continued discussion of the town of Goshen tow policy. And when we left this last time, we had
obviously, and there's no win-win. So my thought would be, my concern is not getting into anybody else's business, either firm, because it just could go on and on and on. My concern is for the safety of the roads, and where there are no safety issues, that really isn't my concern. And of course, our police officers are in charge of safety. And my thought would be, wherever the accident occurred or the problem occurs, that the police officer in charge would have jurisdiction to call the best operator, tow operator, or the closest, who could clear away the safety issue the fastest. Now, that does not involve any one particular towing agency, but it does alleviate the safety problem that I'm concerned with, and that's my only concern. Is I don't feel that we should be involved in the businesses themselves and regulation and so on and so forth. So my thought is, our policy, my thought for our policy would be to the police department and not in general. And of course, he would have a list of all the local tow operators, and as long as it was an emergency and did not hamper the situation with our safety, give the person, whoever wants, the list. And they could, once again, as long as there was no emergency, call whomever they wanted. So, there's my take on it. I don't know how anybody else feels.
any other suggestions?
Well, I concur with Mr. Henry, and that's the best way to do it. The police are there, they're the experts, and besides, they're there.
I don't know where else to go.
I think what I would like to see is, whenever possible, that we use our local tow operators, if you're taxpayers. Certainly we would like to do that. I think that's the right thing to do. The other thing that concerns me is the gouging that takes place. It appears, and we've had multiple cases of this, not casting any dispersions or disrespect on any of the tow operators, that there is gouging that takes place. You have a vulnerable individual there who's had an accident, who's not maybe even thinking properly, needs medical attention, or whatever it may be, and they're taken advantage of. That, I think, necessitates somehow or other some types of restrictions or some types of ways in which we can help the people who are vulnerable. Other than that, I think, as I said last time, the government is best that governs least. So I would like to have as little restrictions as we possibly can, and some kind of a framework of basically what Phil has said and what I have embellished a little bit. That's what I have to say tonight. I didn't, and I don't think you're planning that, there's going to be a final decision tonight, right? We're still discussing this? Doug?
Whatever the board like to do. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, I didn't think I was making a final decision on this. I'm trying to get input and get closure on it. The other thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I thought, Dennis, you were going to find out some information on other municipalities and what they do.
Yeah, so I'm still in the process of compilation. Many of them are similar to what we operate at present, alternating lists, be it days and/or entities. Very similar structure. What I think Phil was talking about is somewhat almost a more laissez-faire operation where the police would access towing facilities wherever they might be available in terms of safety and cleanup conditions or concerns. So that would be a change from your existing policy.
Yeah, it would be, we would prefer using the local operators, obviously. But if they're on the corner of a road that has a safety issue, and there's a towing service across the street that they know is reliable,
Right.
However, they have to wait 20 minutes for another tow truck to come, I think the police should have the discretion to be able to correct the safety problem first, and obviously always use our local merchants first, if you can. But that's all I'm saying. I don't want to leave anyone outside the area, but I want to at least give the police the authority because they're the people on the scene. They understand what they're dealing with. So, anyway.
Louis, you have any thoughts?
I go along with what my board members have said. The only thing here is that, the last couple of weeks when we got together, I almost feel like I'm watching the Hatfields and the McCoys, to be honest with you. And I don't want to get in the middle of something like that. I want to see the safety issue. I want to see the people out there being treated fair. I know we have good tow operators here, and I'd like to see to say that Goshen did a good job. Now, the police can do the right way because sometimes, they might call on somebody they shouldn't call. I'll be quite honest, all right? But I want to make sure, because you're going to have situations, just so you know, that when knowing the locations of both operators here, that you can have something at Campbell Hall, which is way on the other side, which will probably take somebody 20 minutes to a half hour after a call. And that safety does come in, plays a big part at that time. But, those are the severe accidents, So, no, I go along with my board members.
What it sounds like to me then is less specific guidelines, Dennis, than what we have in the current law. That the discretion would be the police departments versus this board's and what we do. Okay. I wonder which one of these machines is clicking.
There you go.
Okay.
They don't want us to talk.
Okay.
That's a lesson for you.
Thank you.
Up there, do it again. I think it's yours, Lou.
I shut it off.
Okay, good. So anyway, I think less specificity from this board, but I also hear that reason and fairness be given whenever possible, and preference be given to Goshen providers if...
Yeah, I think, if you're expanding on that, it would be a rational decision on or a reasonable decision on the part of the officer in place for his position.
Now, I know one of the things that's going to happen, as well as I'm sitting here, is like an overtime list or anything else, the guy or gal who didn't get it's going to complain. Well, if this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. And the buck stops with the police, whoever they select, or ask the people who they want to use. So it has to have a caveat like that, otherwise this is going to continue to catapult going forward. But it is illusory if this board does it, it's gonna be back and forth, and I have to agree with the board members on that, that it's just, since we've been involved in this, it's kinda got out of control. What, Helen?
Can any fool get into this?
Sure. As long as you're both 5 feet tall.
If you guys read John Bach's letter of
Yes, we did.
January 24,
Yeah, we did.
and my response,
You need a mic, that's all right.
Yeah, Al, you take this. Could you do me a favor, just pass that?
But see, but Alan, John Bach's letter, you're responsible for talking about.
yeah,
We don't wanna get involved in this. I mean.
you don't have to. I think
Okay.
Mr. Adamas was complaining about our being treated as favorites because we have 3 companies, he has 1. He says now that he's got other companies just as we do. So long as you establish the standard for treating companies that are related to each other in some way, separately, such as only one man can have one controlling interest in one tow company. The minor interests don't mean anything. Controlling the company, that's fine. We're even Steven. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Relegating the choice of local tow operators to the police, I believe is not a good idea. I believe you need a standard of rotation so that everybody is treated fairly. And with that, and with equality in terms of controlling interests in different companies, we're on the same page as Adamas.
Okay.
You leave it to the police. I don't know what standard is going to be used that is fair to those people who qualify on your list.
Okay.
I don't want to find out that one guy is a favorite and the other isn't, or even worse. And I'm not suggesting that that's an example of the Goshen Police Department. I don't know what it is. I don't have any involvement in that, and I don't want to have it. But I don't want to come in here complaining that that's what's happening. I think all you need to do is adopt, as you have standards for who qualifies as a tow operator, you have those. We don't have any problem with those standards. And allow anybody who chooses to establish any number of companies that he wants, if they qualify, each of them. And they only have one company, one individual controlling each company. That's fine. We won't have any competition between us.
We just don't want to get into the minutia as to who qualifies, who doesn't, who's a member of the corporation. The 2, I hope you're not questioning the integrity of our police department.
I'm not questioning anybody.
Okay, because the officer on the scene would be responsible for the safety issues, Alan, and not, and if there is any type of favoritism or any kind of improper action, then we'll want to know about it. But until then, we would put our trust in the officer on the scene. I mean,
I don't have any issue.
so we don't get into this.
I don't have any issue in your
Okay.
comments earlier about safety.
Yes, that's all I'm concerned about.
That's primary.
Right.
We're not talking about that issue in this context. We're talking about the general run of tow necessities, not necessarily by accidents, by flat tires, or by whatever other
Right.
cause. And I am not suggesting that your police are not fair. It can happen. It happens.
Well, let's talk about favoritism, is what you were talking about. So let's move on with that.
I'm passing.
Okay, good.
But I think that we're, you know, in my office, people come in, well, maybe we ought to do, the first one there gets the job.
Well, that's what will happen anyway.
You don't want that.
But, you know, that's where we're coming though, because guess what? It is, we want the reaction of both sides.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is just a continuation of what we've been experiencing, which is, well, the next thing we gotta look at Mr. O'Donnell and say, is he 80% owner of it, 10%, or, I mean, it's.
All you have to do is adopt the standards.
Well, we're not gonna, I don't think that that's what we're about, because
No, if we adopt it,
we don't, George said the lesser government, the better off it's gonna be. Mr. Downs?
John, as you saw the picture that I just gave you,
Yeah.
that's the game that they're still playing. That was taken the other day with vehicles being unmarked and sending what they want when they feel like sending it. And it belongs to a company that wasn't even called. And according to the New York State motor regulations here, each truck has to be labeled with a DOT number, name of it, and phone number. And as you can see in that picture, his truck doesn't have it.
Can we
So
all?
that's why we're standing in front of here, because they send whatever truck they want, whenever they want.
I don't
Yet they
know.
want to be put on 3 times.
I don't know who they is, but can I
Chess,
see,
K-Team, and Hamiltonian.
can I see what you're talking about?
You sure may, they have a picture up there.
You know what, they can do this
Okay.
outside.
This is why it's in front of you
This
guys.
is a town board
You know,
meeting.
this is really,
That's my whole point, is
Yeah.
Hatfield and McCoy.
Exactly, we know that.
you're correct. I think anyway, the board's got some more dialogue to do on this. Dennis has got more work to do on this, but I think for the
Yeah.
people in the towing business, I think where we're going is less specificity on what it's all about. And it will be up to the police officer at the point of need to call the shot as to who's going to come and do the work. Okay, so anything more from the board on this, other than the fact we'll be discussing what Dennis...
Yeah, as a board, it's gonna take a while, again, we can canvass almost all 20 towns, and we have been, I don't wanna make this a career, but it's just a question
No, I
of
don't think
finding
we can
out.
go to 20 towns. 5?
Yeah, well, we've looked at Chester, we looked at Walk Hill, sort of Warwick surrounding, and again, they're all very similar. For whatever reason, and I haven't spoken to the police departments and/or the tow operators in those areas, but it does not appear that they'll have the level of competition, let's call it, that we have here.
I would do the best practices, all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just thought
Understand?
that's one solution that might not even be the solution, but at least you asked for somebody to speak and I did.
No, it's fine.
I don't know why I spoke first, but that's all right.
That's what Lou says, he who speaks first, Lou.
Loses, and I know that.
I'm with you, Phil.
Anyway, let's do this then.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be here all night and get in all kinds of discussion, but I think where we're going is less specificity
Yeah.
relative to how the procedure will be, and more the center of gravity will move to the police officer.
Police officer on site.
Discretion at the site. In the meantime, Dennis, we'll rely on whatever you can bring back to us in a week or two, or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
yeah,
We'll
We'll
discuss it
change.
again, and we'll change it.
We'll change. We'll do
Okay.
the rotation.
All right. Very good. The next item is discuss proposed changes being made by Governor Cuomo to limit the ability of local governments to plea bargain tickets and for adding an $80 surcharge for each violation process. As part of the governor's when the governor reviewed his 2013-14 budget, he had some things in here that he said. There were lots of things he was talking about. But he said, make it harder for drivers to plea bargain traffic tickets to avoid suffering fines and higher auto insurance premiums. And this also is a money-making situation for the state of New York. Because a lot of times these tickets are plea bargained to a point where the majority of the money stays with the local courts. Where with this, it goes to almost all to the state. Okay, guys, we're going to try to hold a meeting here if you can move it up. No problem, but have a good evening. Take care, thank you for coming. So anyway, any thoughts, I mean, I'm just looking at this was discussed at the Association of Towns and Villages, that this might very well be a problem for local municipalities and courts. George?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I think there was some, was there a letter going to be sent by the association?
I didn't see it.
You know, stating that,
Right.
that this was absolutely ridiculous, but let me just go back for a second or two, just in my own thoughts, and we've discussed this already, so I'm not going to be saying anything that's earth-shattering. Before this came out, I was always taken back by the fact of how much money the state gets from our local courts. We do all the work, and then you've all signed the vouchers, $25,000, $30,000, you know, on a regular basis. I mean, it's more than $100,000 a year, I believe. So my thought on it was that they're getting enough now, in fact, they're getting too much now, and this whole thing is absolutely ridiculous. What should be happening is they should be giving more money to the local area, not requesting more of this. There's a surcharge already. I've come to the court here a number of different times. And for those of you who have not done that, it really is eye-opening, at least it was eye-opening to me. The people that come here can't afford their daily needs, and they're getting whacked unbelievably by these things. For the governor or for the state to be asking for more money from these people is just unbelievable in my mind. They should be reducing the fees, not increasing the fees. And the local justices now are getting the short end of the stick. That we should be getting more of the money, more of the share, not less.
I wonder if you read in this thing, it's kind of, make it harder for the drivers to plea bargain traffic tickets to avoid stiffer fines and higher auto insurance premiums. I worry about the insurance companies getting more wealth as a consequence of their lobbying, and this just plays right into the hand of that. And but go ahead.
I'd like to chime in too, and that was one of the things that I was going to go over. The first thing is, we have home rule. I mean, there are circumstances on every traffic violation, and if it is pleaded down, the officer who usually who is given the ticket, and the prosecutor or whomever, they have to come to some kind of agreement. So they must agree that maybe the violation should be reduced. Well, in the governor's program, it's hard and fast. You don't reduce it, and you do this. Well, the second point is that just because of what George said, a lot of the people can't pay what they're being charged now, have a difficult time to end it. This will create an incredible burden on our court system, because if they don't pay, then certain warrants have to be issued, follow-up has to be done, licenses have to be suspended, and we will get less income because more of it will go to the state, and we'll have more of a work burden. It's like this 2% cap. They get a compensation insurance of 11% and a pension insurance rate of 17 to 20%, but they limit us. So the third thing is that the insurance companies, I can't imagine that they're not lobbying behind this, because if you can't reduce it, you have the points. Once you have the points, your insurance premium goes up. And how assigned risk works, if you go into the assigned risk pool, each company gets a percentage of that pool back. So you go into the assigned risk, and now your insurance premium is not $600, it's $4,000. Well, Allstate may have that customer, and they may lose that customer into the assigned risk pool, but they'll get their percentage of other customers out. So it's a huge lobby by the insurance company. What I see is force this type of law upon our local courts. And I'm very, very much against it. I don't want Governor Cuomo, with all due respect, to come into our courtroom and tell us what we have to do. That's what there are judges for. That's what there are prosecutors for. I mean to grandstand, but I feel very strongly about this. We certainly have enough mandates, and they are controlling us enough where it's difficult to control our own destiny.
But if you look at the words again on this newspaper, it
confuses
me. What you're saying, it just says, make it harder for drivers. That's not a nice word to say.
No.
More difficult on people who, they need to pay their freight for what they've done wrong.
And some of these violations should be negotiated because they may not be what they seem, and that's what you have a judge for.
Right.
So anyway, that's how I feel.
All right, any other comments from the
Yeah,
board?
I mentioned it before, I mean, it's great the state gives us 2% cap, and here they are taking $100,000 out of our budget. We get caught on both ends. The state makes more money, it costs us more money, then they said, don't go over 2% cap, so.
Yeah. So is there any confusion as to where this board stands?
There is representative, but there is one other item. And the other item is, when I talked to the people in the Justice Court, is that it's going to not only make more work for them, but people are going to get angry. And if you go by the court where people pay their bills and their fines, there's a lot of dialogue that goes back and forth, and sometimes people almost get out of control, where you have to call the police to come up and quiet them down, and to protect our employees who are just doing their work. You add another surcharge of $80 on this to an already expensive bill,
And collect the point.
and it's all the bad news. I think that this is not a very good thing. I'm going to put it on the agenda for Thursday night, that we pass a resolution to send to all our legislative people, state senators, state legislators, and others, to oppose this particular item that the governor proposed.
Just to add something, if you
Yes.
recall, about 2 years ago, we had to hire somebody part-time for about a year to clear up records of people that didn't pay fines.
Yeah.
If you remember that.
Sure.
And we, the town, our constituents had to pay for that to go after all these. And the reason why is, like you said,
The additional burden.
you can't afford it, and you gotta chase them down.
Okay, good discussion. It's all one-sided.
Well, as I said, Dustin, I think it's really important that the Assemblyman knows that. I mean, that's not just our board. That was the talk of the whole
Association of
association,
Villages.
from
And the
all the villages.
And the villages.
They were just adamant that this should be rescinded.
We understand and we look forward to obviously seeing your resolution in its full text, and obviously we, to say the least, to every town board, we will pay attention to what you have to say about this.
That's good, thank you. Okay, the last item, well, next to the last item, I was going to add one on, is review the recent information regarding asbestos removal from Salesian School building. And so, Mayor Roddy, I'm glad you're here to hear what we're going to say about this. We got some ideas today. Okay, so George is coordinating
Yeah,
this.
it's just going to take a minute for me to get my stuff here together.
So, Paul Rodriguez from Quest, I'd like to thank him very much for all the work he did. He basically got 4 people interested in the asbestos abatement and demolition of the building. 3 of the vendors actually showed up. And what he did was he wrote up a pretty specific spec on what to be done. And this was all free of charge, as I had said before to the town board and also to you, Mayor, is that I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money doing bids and getting further information if then we were going to decide both boards can't do this at this particular time because it's cost prohibitive. So anyway, with that in mind as a backdrop, what I was able to do was get some information. And the information basically comes down to
three bidders. First one was environmental remediation services. The environmental remediation services was going to, a lot of bid documents here. I'll read because it's the same thing for each three of the vendors. Excuse me?
No, free of charge, we're testing the market.
Test the market, but he did write up very specific types of things so that each one of the vendors was bidding on the same thing, even though it was an informal bid. Okay? So, price number one included complete decontamination, removal, and disposal of all identified asbestos-containing materials, as well as asbestos-contaminated contents throughout the entire basement and crawl space, and for that matter, the whole entire building. The second phase was complete decontamination, removal, and disposal of identified asbestos-containing materials in the floors 1, 2, and 3. And then the third phase of that was perform complete removal and disposal of all identified asbestos in a proper land site. So for that, ERSI was a bid of $1,270,000. The second part of that, as I said to you on another occasion, was that was going to be about 60% of the building was going to be gone. So 40% of the building was left. To collapse and to take the rest of it away was $595,000. To the tune then of this particular vendor for that two-stage process, $1,865,000. There was a price 3, and price 3 is very simple. You collapse the whole building, and everything becomes asbestos, and they cart it away. If that was going to happen with ERSI, it would be $1,330,000. That's the first one. The second one is Asbestos Corporation of America. Asbestos Corporation of America, the first phase where I said, they take out the asbestos and then take down the rest of the building, total cost would be $1,242,000. If they were going to collapse the entire building and take it away, it was $1,480,000. And that shoots Asbestos Corporation.
He didn't give you a number 2, though.
They did.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the breakdown. That's true. I just gave you the total. The breakdown is for the price 1, $935,000.
Okay.
And $307,000 for the collapsing the rest of the building and taking it away.
Right.
For a total amount of $1,242,000. And last but not least, PAR Environmental Corporation out of Suffolk, New York. They had a little different take on it. They didn't even bid on the first part, and then the second part and taking it away. They only bid on price 3, which was collapse the whole building and cart it away. And that appears to be the lowest, I can't say response, but the lowest bid that I got, and that is $975,000. Okay, so that's the bid process. On top of that, there's a monitoring that has to take place, and it's $700 a day. These different figures that they're talking about, anywhere from 30 to 40 to 60 days. So I just got one price. That was from Paul, because that's Paul Rodriguez. That's what he does. It's about $700 a day. So, for argument's sake, I guess you're talking. This is not putting out bids and all this kind of stuff. It's $1 million or more, probably more, maybe $1.1 million with the lowest bid, and that would be collapsing the whole entire building and then carting it all away as asbestos.
These are informal estimates, and if we go
Correct.
out for bid, they may, maybe better or maybe worse.
Interesting enough you say that, Phil, because Paul, this is all Paul speaking now, he said, it depends on the time of year that you do it. If you do it during, like this time, is a good time. Once you start hitting close to where schools let out,
Okay.
then they become much busier. And if you were letting the bid out at that particular
Yeah.
time, the bid probably would go up.
It wasn't like schools.
So that's
Okay.
what I know now, and I guess what I'm saying is at least we now have some, I think, pretty
Yeah.
firm figures on where we go. I guess the next step, I mean, it happens to be that the mayor is here, so, this would be a shared expense naturally with the village, so we have some discussion to take place. And maybe, I spoke briefly with Doug this afternoon, and maybe there's some other creative ways or other types of things that might be able to be done, not just from, these specifics, but these were what he requested, and this is what the bids are, so everybody got the same thing.
From my vantage point, we need to use some creative thinking and maybe swap a piece of property for somebody to come into it for a whole lot lesser number, whatever. There's got to be other variations in how we do this, because I can share right now, town of Goshen, I don't want to speak for the village of Goshen, but spend $1 million to $1.8 million or whatever this is in today's environment ain't going to happen. And like one of these, I thought, well, from my own engineering standpoint, we'll dig a big hole next to it, shove it over in the hole and bury it. I mean, I don't know what we can or cannot get done, but there are things other than just go the route. These people are in business to make money, and they're professionals. They know how to do it. But anyway, we will. I think we just need a brainstorming session with a couple of engineers in there, our own, and see what we can come up with in the days to come. But good. But George, thank you very much for all the work you've done on this, because it's...
Yeah, I wanted to also give you copies, Kyle. I don't have them now.
Okay.
I'll get you copies, and I'll probably, tomorrow night, we have our monthly JRC meeting, and I assume Rory will probably be there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be able to give him some of the copies, and he can pass it on to you guys, so you can have the same information that we have. Everybody knows then what's going on.
And I appreciate all the work you're doing on this. I know you're working hard on it. Very helpful.
Thank you.
One quick item here, and then we'll get into this request by the Goshen Village to annex the property. We got a request from the St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee. It came through Chief Watt for 2 PD officers from Goshen. And I said, well, they can get them from Goshen, but we've always charged in the past. And that's kind of our policy. So I'm just running it by the board. You all have a problem with that? That's what I communicated to Sergeant Faustus going in on this.
Well, I mean, that's our policy. We
Right.
have that policy, every other organization pays. I mean, that's what it is.
Okay, very good. And if I told him that, Phil, if you'd also communicate that to him as well, to follow up, make sure, because I'll be out of town the rest of the week, I don't want some... Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Okay, the next item is discuss Village of Goshen request to annex village-owned property located in the town of Goshen, known as Goshen Crossings. And I've asked the mayor to come and talk to us about what it is that you'd like, and we'll go from there.
Great. Good evening,
So
everyone.
thank you for coming. You can see in your package.
You can give this.
That's okay. I have some big maps, I can pass them out, or...
I just put it right there.
Yeah, I'm talking to...
Okay, no problem. Everyone kind of get to see this one okay? I'll speak generally first. Many of you know the situation already. The village, this is the property that housed the village landfill for a number of years. That was removed in the past year, and the village very much wants to get this site on the tax rolls and bring in some revenue from the sale of the property, but also continued revenue for all taxing authorities here through development there. And there's different configurations that can be made, but essentially it could house one really large warehouse or 2 fairly large warehouses. That seems to be what the market's out there for right now. Office space, as we all know, isn't really moving, and residential really isn't what we want to see there. So it's really industrial, it's essentially all zone industrial already. But basically, we want to make this as viable as we can. And the fact that the village owns the property makes it attractive to a potential developer in terms of bringing it through the approval process. The fact that we can kind of work hand in hand with bringing it forward, and we're actually going to, on our own, do some things to start getting it approved in the near future. But one of the challenges with the site, I've been told by our real estate consultants, is because there is a portion of it that is in the town of Goshen, and there's a portion in the village of Goshen. So any kind of planning approval process would be in two municipalities. So I'm here tonight to officially ask, and I sent a letter previously, for the town to approve annexation of that portion of the property that's in the town to make that part of the village. The parcel itself is a large parcel, but the part that would actually be buildable that's in the town is actually very, very small. Essentially right here you have the town-village line. This section right here, that's where the landfill was. So if you drive past, you go through the tunnel on 17M, you go past the auto garage, and just a little bit down the road, you have the entrance there where you'd come in. So this is the main parcel here where it's flat. Back here, there's a lot of topography, a lot of hills and stuff. Portions of it are buildable, and a lot of this area you could build on, but the excavation costs the further back you get are a lot. Again, this is all in the village portion. You have over here the village sewage treatment plant, Heritage Trail across, and these are the two lagoons from the old wastewater treatment plant the village owned. And around that, that's all wetlands. All back here is wetlands. This is all wetlands. So the portion that's in the town of Goshen that would be built upon is basically this section right around there. So I guess maybe just a little bit on the periphery there. So it's a very small piece of property that's actually in the town that would be viable to be built on.
Which side is the town, Kyle?
This is all town. Yeah, this is town. Yeah, this is village.
I see.
It extends down here further down 17M, but again, this is all wet stuff.
So where would your warehouses go?
Can I borrow that pen? I'll draw them right on, actually. Thanks. Essentially, all this could be built on. The further back you get, there'll be a little more to dig up. It's really whatever cost that these guys have, in the future. But the amount that's really buildable, this really isn't even back here, but to an extent, if possible, it would probably be that section.
Okay.
So the portion in the town, and again, this would require a really large building to even impact this area. It's probably even smaller than that. That's me, the non-engineer, trying my best. But basically, this shaded area right here is the portion that's in the town that could potentially be built on. This is a long shot. It would be used back there. It's possible. Really depends on the potential development that would be in front of us. So from a taxing standpoint, it is a small area. Certainly, it is some area, to be very clear. But right now, it's all about competitiveness. There's a lot of people that want to sell property, not a lot of people that want to buy property, and there's a very finite amount of people out there that actually want to build and develop. And in terms of these guys wanting to come in and find a location, it's really about the speed and be able to get the approvals and obviously following the proper protocol and processes, but in an expedited way for the most part. And planning takes time, as we all know, and going through the approval process takes time, as we all know. And to have to go through two different municipal bodies is a real, it could be a deal breaker for a lot of these people that will be looking at it. I know that it's been talked about in the past, and something that we've discussed internally in the village is getting the okay from the town to give basically the approval process to the village in that area. And what we were told by our consultant is, if that happened on a case-by-case basis, if someone showed interest, showed up, and then asked, then it might be doable, but that would require someone already actively wanting that site. And a lot of people that might want to buy the property potentially might not even look at it once they heard that it could be a double approval process. And it makes it less attractive from afar, the fact that it is in two municipalities, just from, letting...
So the proposal is that would you annex your sewer plant and the lagoons and all that whole parcel?
I mean, I think I'm open to whatever.
I'm just wondering what it is you'd like to have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make most sense to just do everything, because it is, it is the one parcel and all that, and this stuff over here, there's nothing that could ever be built there because of the wetlands and stuff anyway, and this is...
Does the village own that too?
Yes,
You own that whole
yeah, we
part.
own the whole kick and caboodle.
How the hell did that little piece of Goshen get up there?
What's that?
No, the piece, how did the little piece go along that border of that property, but this continues?
Well, this whole thing is our property.
They just want,
This is ours too.
Yeah.
It's just the portion that's actually buildable.
just
is
want
part
to
of it.
annex just a tiny piece of the Goshen property, which means we would have to create, we would have to create a different lot.
Well, I think that we would be willing to annex everything, the town was willing, just to make it that much easier. Because, this stuff over here, it's not gonna generate revenue in terms of being wetlands and all that, regardless. Obviously, nothing's generating revenue now because it's village-owned off the tax rolls.
Do you have a customer right now?
No, I mean, there's some interest in the site. At this point, it's not really, at a point where it's tomorrow ready to go. I don't know what happens, people look elsewhere and, you don't never know how serious things are. But it's really, whether it's now or down the line, it's something that the village would like to get done, just so the property does become that much more attractive. And in terms of, this amount, what it could generate in revenue from the town perspective is obviously, not very significant compared to the rest. And ultimately, if we can get the whole thing sold and put a nice big warehouse there generating revenue, it's gonna be a lot more than it would otherwise if no one gets it. That's one of those things where it's, 30% of nothing or 10% of a whole lot.
Well, I have a number of issues, but not as a town board member, but as a village resident, doing something, and as a town board member. And I voiced this at the Jedi at the very first meeting, to spend money to an engineering just on the chance that someone might come in and buy something. To me, you could do that all over the town, on all your pieces of property, and never sell any. The precedent, obviously, is that the builder comes in, he sees what it is, if it fits him, he builds or buys. So I know you have a real estate consultant that has pretty well persuaded or made a good argument for making it all shovel-ready first, and then maybe we'll get a buyer, but obviously that takes money. And I know you're going to take the trees down to pay for that, but then that may not make the property as suitable to someone that might like the trees. So, I mean, there are different things.
Sure.
So, the other thing I'm more concerned about is setting some kind of precedent that people will come in here and look for annexation before they even have a project. We're in the middle. We've had an annexation at one time. We did it. We went on a promise. And it was not developed, so we're stuck with an annexation that has not been developed, nothing has happened. So I would be concerned about setting any kind of precedent. Now, if you had a customer, you had something, there would be no problem. And there still may not be any problem with me. I just need to understand what we're doing, how much we're spending, and why we're really doing that, when it's just not the way it's done. Other than maybe making it more palatable for the realtor to be able to go out and sell. I don't know.
Sure.
But
If I can.
those are some concerns.
Sure, if I can.
Yeah.
In terms of pre-engineering the site and all that work, that's a separate issue from the annexation, because that's something we're interested regardless of this. And we might not move forward with it. But really, that's for us, that's a separate issue than the annexation issue.
But you'd have to do something even to move the lot lines and do the annexation. That would take a certain amount of engineering, legal, a lot of things are involved in annexation.
With this, it's actually a special circumstance, and I know that David has spoken to Dennis.
Okay.
When a village owns a piece of property outside the village, to annex it into the village from the town, all that requires is a board resolution from the town. So it's a process that is a million times simpler than the standard annexation process.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Dennis,
That's accurate.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, because when we did with the Village of Florida, where it was great, we had public hearings, we had the whole nine.
Right.
Quite the board.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board members?
I just want to get, this is the property that is owned by the village, but it's the town.
The whole thing
No.
is owned by the village.
Okay.
This is all wet. This is swamps, this is lagoons.
Okay.
And that's owned by
This
us.
is all wetlands.
But that's buildable, Lou,
This
where
is-
they,
this
This
circle-
I'm getting confused.
This circle portion is the buildable portion.
All right, is this in the town?
This is the town line right
All right,
now.
that's why I was getting
Yeah.
confused. How does this piece here?
Yeah.
When you said villager, it's village owned, but it's in the town.
Right, we own the whole parcel.
That's why I got.
Yeah, we own the whole parcel. This is the town-village line. This is all unusable over here.
but that's in the village, correct?
Yeah, this section is in the village.
Yes.
Out here is town.
Right, the lagoons and the...
Probably a little further down, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, this is the area that could potentially be built, and this is the section. And again, it could be even less than this. It could be all in the village for all we know. But there's the potential that part could be used, and that's in the town. Correct, correct.
I got confused when.
The size of
I was
the-
wondering how that little piece got in there.
Without the town, the size of that piece of property, how big is that, the buildable piece of property?
This
Yeah.
section, I'll tell you, I don't have the exact figures. I want to say around 40 acres, but I'm not positive. I'd have to double check and get back to you on that.
And the amount you want to annex, how much land?
I mean, in theory, we would just like to annex everything, just because this stuff out here is,
Yeah, no, I understand.
yeah, it's not really, going to impact the site one way or another, but just to make it cleaner.
Just so the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just
Once
so the-
you annex that, then the property next to it can ask for annexation. If you annex a little piece, then we still own the other properties as a buffer. So, I mean, you could...
Well, you don't own it, it's all village owned.
No,
There's
no. Right, but once you annex out, all right, we don't go to the lot line, okay, go ahead.
Just so the board's aware, information-wise, the entire parcel which the village owns is 113.6 acres.
Right.
The portion in the town is 60.4 acres. The portion in the village is 53.2 acres.
So we own more land than...
You don't own anything.
No, that's right.
Right,
No,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there's-
there's more land in the town.
In terms of sheer area and geography, there's a significant amount that's in the town. That's, it's not economically viable.
I know. I have no problem.
So Kyle, get my thing here, so
As you had said, you'd like the whole parcel, but what's most important is the piece that would be looked at for the development aspect of it, right? So if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like there's a circular spot, you own most of it, but you're looking at, I don't know, it looks like a circle and then a straight line on this side and then the same thing on the other side. See what I'm saying?
No,
I don't need that. This part here and the same part over there, that's the part that you're looking to annex.
this is the town line currently, as currently configured.
Right.
And the part that's buildable extends slightly out.
Right.
Yep.
So needless to say, if we were going to do that, it wouldn't be like a circle. It would be, you'd have to move that line out X amount of feet and then go straight out, right? I mean, you'd have to go straight across on the other side, right?
I suppose that if you were going to carve it out, you would probably bring this back this way,
Right.
and then bring this out
Yeah,
this way.
so that whole line there, that part that goes up like up of a mountain, would just be moved further out.
Right.
And-
If we were going to split it up. I mean,
If we were going to do that to accommodate you, right?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think our thing was, in terms of saying just annex the whole thing, is just because we already own this, this isn't going to generate revenue, so we didn't see an argument to not annex the whole thing. There very well could be, but that wasn't something we had discussed.
But
so.
you know, one of the things you could do is, I mean, if the board is opposed to annexing it all, is this lot that you're gonna have to split off for whoever buys it, would include where the town is and where the village is. If you did that, then when you come in with a request, here's what we would like annexed, or we got A or B. You know, we could do it all, or we could do that piece. That piece is what's required to sell the property and to build on it.
To make it whole.
Make it work.
Correct.
Make it work. So that's, you know, okay. Good. So where are we, board?
So Dennis, is there anything that we might be missing here? Is there
No, it's, as you know, the village's property.
Right.
I understand the rationale for what they want to do.
Yeah.
The only issue, if any, to the town would be any contiguous property subsequently. didn't qualify for an annexation.
Exactly.
But without being familiar with the properties, I don't know if it even affects
Well,
anything, you know.
if you look
The
at
Audubon Society,
the Audubon Society, all that lower land is what it is.
Right.
And I don't even know who owns the Audubon Society's land.
And this is the county DPW property
Yeah,
over
right.
here.
Audubon, do they own it all? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, right here you have the highway and then it's all village over here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where Chuck Place and all that area.
It's clear.
You have Dr. Hemmer's property there,
Where?
next to the sewer plant.
Come on, show.
5 Glass Lane or something?
Cypress Lane.
Right here, right? From right here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the only piece there that's contiguous on this side over
That's
here. Contiguous down here is probably the convenience shop, convenience store. on the side.
Tennis court,
Yeah.
tennis court.
And you came out there, but that's probably going.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this then. Is the board opposed to, if they straighten those lines out, of just annexing that? Because that's gonna be the lot they're going to sell to make this thing work?
I think we should look at it at least, though, and talk about it. Maybe.
Sure.
They don't have a customer ready to do that immediately, right? And you're not gonna do it tomorrow morning.
No. I mean, certainly, we'd rather move sooner than later, but I mean, I understand this is a major decision that,
Yeah.
requires time.
Yeah, I wanna get the input, maybe.
Well, I think what we're smarting from a little bit is we had something comparable to this over in
Yeah.
Florida,
Okay.
and we did it in good faith, and
I was not here.
we...
Yeah, I got it.
It was all gonna be developed, we were gonna have income from it, one-timer, because we were giving up taxable income, and it was never built on, so now we're in the process of trying to collect that
And then
money.
the lands adjacent are looking to annex.
We don't know if they're
So
gonna-
they're looking to travel down the road, but then I don't see a problem.
I mean, I think one distinction between those two is that property was, I assume, privately owned, so it was generating taxes prior and after, and you
Yeah.
probably lost revenue after because it was
Yeah.
taxed.
Yeah.
With this, it's generating zero revenue.
Right.
So even if nothing were to happen and we never sold it, it's still not a loss for the town from a revenue standpoint.
It minor, but I also think that you, when you look at this and start studying it and whatnot, you may want to give long and hard thought to like moving those lines or squaring them off as you,
Right.
only because I know I'm in the development business in the private end, and many times you may need additional footage or area for bulk area requirements or some weird requirement, and suddenly they're back in front of you again. So I'm not saying it's all or nothing, but you better just look at it hard in that
What we
regard.
have to consider, why we want to take time is, you have some options that you have given us. One is move the lot lines and just annex that portion that you need, or two, maybe annex the whole thing. You know what? I'd like to think about both of them.
Right, and the point Dennis just brought up was something I didn't even think about initially, but that is a good point, because if someone wanted to develop here and they only had this, they would have to set aside a certain amount of that for, wetlands or whatever.
Yeah, just
Whereas
like our
if we own the whole thing, sold it,
Right.
if we had the whole thing, then they would already have that built in, which is obviously
There are a couple of
a
things.
lot more attractive as well.
We really should think about on how to do this right. And that's really where I'm at,
Okay.
you know?
Very good. Any other questions of the board?
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate you coming and showing us what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
What it
opportunity.
looked like. And, do we have that copy, the top
You can
copy?
keep all of them if you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me bring one back with me, just like one from my office. We have, Mike and Kelly has more, but just that way. I just
Leave
keep
us
one.
two, one for Neil and one, yeah, then we'll
Okay.
take the others back. Take two, or for us. One for Neil and one for us. Okay. Very good.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. to
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Oh, that was easy.
It's a word from our village.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a good evening. Okay, board, is there anything else you would like to discuss tonight?
I got one real fast one.
Yes.
A while back, you made my office, or gave my office the responsibility for 911 numbering and that.
Yes.
We have our first subdivision since that time, and oddly enough, you are responsible for naming the roads or accepting the names of roads, so I need you to officially accept the names of two roads in A&L Acres, which is on Houston Road. The proposed names are Teeks Way, Chief's Way, like fire chief or Indian chief, whatever, and Paradise Valley Lane.
Why not Bloomfield Boulevard or something?
Oh,
No, I'm sorry.
wait a second. I'm going this member on the board, should be.
You know, when I visited San Jose, they had one long way. Okay,
What do we need from them?
Okay.
I just need.
Simple resolution. It says request of the developer, as long as the names aren't offensive or in any way, not politically correct.
There are no other names like that?
No, we did check with 911. 911
Yes.
said they will accept those names if town accepts those
But
names.
there are 2 hilltops in Goshen,
Yeah.
and I get their mail and they get mine.
Yeah, no, we did check that.
This is, again, what was it,
Chief's Way.
Chief
Way, and Paradise Valley Lane.
That's a long name.
I
That's also an interesting.
It's a new parking spot. You go.
Okay.
If you would do this,
Don't fill that door.
deal with Dennis, so he can put up a resolution, we'll put it on Thursday night.
Okay?
Yeah, I assume there's no objections.
No.
As you know, most of the times, developers, like a more extensive development, have their children's names or, you know, it is what it is, as long as it's not offensive in any way, apolitical or not politically correct, usually.
Pretty good. Done deal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Neil, and by the way.
All right, would someone like to make a motion?
Before we do that, Doug, I just want to thank Dusty, who's coming out from Assembly Room, and his office to
Yes.
be here tonight.
Thank you for coming
We
in.
hope to see him again. We
Absolutely.
got a meeting, but important to come down, appreciate it.
And Neil?
And take notes, that was really great.
I'll be reporting to.
That's recorded. That's why the Assembly won't pay him unless I got the notes.
Step out of line. That's your son-in-law. Okay.
Anything else? Would someone like to make a motion, we adjourn the meeting to go into executive session, with the intent not to return, to talk about a tax surcharge update, police department personnel case update, review the status of Faith et al. Versus Town of Goshen et al. Lawsuit.
And one other, it had one item, the Maplewood subdivision pending, you know, I guess not pending, but existing litigation, Maplewood,
Litigation. Okay.
Subdivision.
yeah, project litigation.
Okay. Okay. Who made the motion?
I made the motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Lions Lane wouldn't be bad.
I did, Val, but everybody made it over me.
I can't come up with anything with anything. Bloomfield Boulevard, Lions Lane, you guys gotta change middle meaning this. No, well, yeah, right, there's nothing. Like New Bold, Sweet Little Lane.
Well, do you know that the longest road in the Bronx? My grandpa.